So rather than assume that I know what you want to hear from me, I'm just going to do a couple of things, and then I'm going to open the floor for conversation. And so this is this is my geeky way of summarizing who I am. I don't know if I did a good job or not, but let's see. So I'm originally from Belize. When I left Belize, I moved to California. While I was living in California, I went to the University of Southern California. And after I got my bachelor's in international relations, I moved to Miami, and I went to the University of Miami and got my master's in international studies and economic development. Then put that master's to work by becoming a secretary at Hewlett Packard. And that's where my love for technology began. I was a consultant in my early days. I lived in Winston-Salem, North Carolina for a year and a half. That's that flag with the star and the red, yellow, and blue. And very passionate about Miami. Occasionally I can convince my friends to go on long bike rides with me, but most times I'm riding by myself. And I try to do, when I was a little bit younger, I was doing 50, 60 miles. Now I'm doing like 40 miles. I ride around the county, just understanding what's going on. In my previous job at the Children's Trust, I was a chief programs officer and a chief information officer. And so I had to know, kind of project what kind of money we were going to get. So I would ride around the county, counting the cranes and looking at all of the new buildings that are coming online and trying to guess how much additional money that would come. And then in 2022, I decided I needed to reset, reinvent myself for the third time. I went to Harvard Advanced Leadership Initiative, and that's where I kind of got the courage. I got courage. And a lot of people are like, you got courage, that doesn't seem right. So I've always been a bold and fearless person, but I haven't had courage. And what I mean by that, like, courage is being willing to be canceled, being willing to just like hold your ground for what you believe in. I don't think that until recently there was anything that I believed in with such level of passion that I was willing to just like stare people down and go, try me. But now I think I have that. And so how does that passion manifest itself? I feel like I finally was able to merge together my desire to make the world a better place, my love of technology, my philanthropy, learning how to use technology to solve problems. And I co-started a company called Avatar Buddy. We use generative AI to help marginalized communities get resources that help them be the best versions of themselves so that they can reach their highest potential. And, as people talk about generative AI and all of that stuff, we've been working on this for 7 years. This is not a new thing. So we are really about how do we bring AI to groups of people that normally get left behind whenever there's a technological revolution. So we had the internet, marginalized people got left behind. By the time they got included, there was a lot more garbage than not. Then we had the smartphones, and we all know about how Apple deliberately priced their phones really, really high because they wanted to be exclusive. And now we have generative AI. And what scares me about generative AI is that this tool, if it's not put in the hands of marginalized community, will create an achievement gap so wide that it's going to be really horrible. And the book that comes to mind when I think about it is 1984. Now, I know a lot of people don't do 1984. It's a big book. It's hard to read. But in 1984, there was this main character, Winston. And what Winston would do is he would try and avoid the cameras by going to this part to visit these people called the Porlets. And the Porlets were, they lived in a violent, poor, horrible community. And nobody really cared about them. And that's what's going to happen if we don't make it our business to make sure that marginalized community gets access to generative AI. And for me, that's where my courage comes in, because I could take this knowledge and just go sell this stuff to middle and upper middle class people. The sales cycle would be much shorter, it'd be so much easier. I could price my product maybe 3 times what I'm selling it for, but I don't think it would feed my soul. So today I'm going to talk a little bit about how, as a leader, if you do things that feed your soul, how you get success so much more incredible. And that as you look back on your life, you just dotted with these things that you're like, wow, this is amazing. And so I'm going to be bold, I'm going to be courageous, and I'm going to lean into generative AI for a marginalized community. And I'm going to try and make sure that George Orwell prediction of the future doesn't come true. And I may fail, I may succeed, I might get somewhere in between, but at least I know I've tried. So when I got invited to be part of this panel, I was like super excited. And the reason why I was super excited is because I want people to know that you can be an uber successful leader and you can still love your employees. Yes, I just said love your employees. I know people are like, oh, well, what is HR going to say about that? But you can love your employees and you can still respect them. You can still hold them accountable. I'm not saying love your employees and cuddle them and make them less than. I'm saying love them so that they can be the best version of themselves and bring their A game and feel good about themselves. And that's what I do. That's what I do. And so as like a math geek, I have a little formula for this. Very simple formula. But it's about, if you take confidence, right? And so for me, I was lucky. I grew up in a household where my brother thought I was a superhero. I don't know if that was real or he just was trying to get me to do crazy stuff and hurt myself, but he was always like trying to convince me I'm Wonder Woman and I can do stuff that I probably shouldn't be doing. But I also grew up in a house where my dad said that I was a Sylvestre and I could be and do whatever I want. Now, fortunately, I had a mom that had some semblance of agency, and still till today, still kind of reminds me. I go, no, you can't just do that. That's not being a Sylvestre and doing what you want does not mean you can do anything you want. It's not a literal translation, Stephanie. So she's still trying to get me to understand that 51 years later. Bless her soul. But confidence, if you weren't raised in a household like that, you can still learn it. And my tip for learning confidence is very simple. Every day, you're intentional about your wins. So like, you're driving and you're like, oh, please let me make this light. And you make the light and you're like, yeah, confidence. You're like, oh my God, I'm going to be late. And then you're on time, you cheer. Or like, you're like, I'm going to be late. And you think you're going to be 15 minutes late, but you're only 5 minutes late. You can still cheer. And so it's about like just being intentional about all the wins that happen in your life. And even when things don't go your way, you can say, why was this still okay? And you start doing that, right? You slowly, and I recommend, and I remember I had a staff member and I said, you're really great, but you don't have the confidence to get to the next level. And I made her email me every week all the wins. And the first few weeks, she was really upset with me. I mean, she was upset with me because she's like, this is uncomfortable and it's hard. And I was like, just stay with it. And there was another person I said, do the same thing. And she was like, this is too hard. And she stopped. Well, 2 years later, when we had a promotion, guess who got the promotion? The person that had practiced being confident. Because after a while, she didn't have to send me the list anymore. It was just part of her natural DNA. It can be learned. And so, okay, so I've told you how to build confidence. Then how to be humble. And humility is like a really hard thing, right? Because right about now, you guys are thinking, wait, Stephanie, you just said confidence and humility in the same sentence, and you want me to be both of those things at the same time? That doesn't make any sense. Those things are contradictory. But actually, in order for you to have confidence, you have to have humility, because you have to be able to be comfortable not winning. You have to be comfortable understanding that the only time you have a win is because there's a team of people around you. There's a whole bunch of other people that was in there that contributed to your confidence. And so the more you can be humble, the more you can be confident. And so, like, I'll give you an example. Whenever I'm a leader, I go and I say to people, I need you to do this. I delegate my authority. And that's hard. It's absolutely hard to delegate your authority, right? But every time I found when I delegated my authority, and I say to my staff, look, if something goes sideways, it's all on me. I'm the one that's going to walk into the principal's office and take the spankings. If everything goes well, it's all about you and your awesomeness. It's a win-win situation. And what I found is people that took me up on the offer, they usually produce things better than I could ever conceive doing. And so humility is about understanding that you need other people to get ahead. It's about talking about wins, but not about from the I statement, but from the we statement, from the us. And the more you can talk about we, and I'm not talking about the royal we. You know, some people say we, but they mean themselves. I mean, like, truly we, the team, the community, the society, whoever the we is, that came together and worked. That's what I'm talking about, being humble. So now you got confidence and you have humility. And I say you wrap that in some vulnerability. And so vulnerability is hard to say how to become vulnerable. But oh wait, actually let me go back to humility for a second. How do you be humble? So you put yourself in uncomfortable situation. So I'm going to tell you my most recent humility act. So I have my AI company, and I'm designing this tool for marginalized people. But I mean, when was the last time I actually experienced being marginalized? I don't know. 30 years ago, when I worked at the supermarket, when I lived in LA, not so sure. So I don't know what it's like to be a marginalized individual right now. So I went and I got a job paying me $15 an hour. And I went, I applied. I did not lie on my application. I just was creative with the wording. And I am now having this job. And I'm like experiencing how people that make $15 an hour are treated, how they talk to us, because nobody knows who I am there, how they assume that we are not smart, how people try to preserve their dignity by doing certain things. And I think to myself, wow. So I've learned what it's like to be treated like a $15 an hour person. And it doesn't feel good. It doesn't feel good. It absolutely doesn't feel. But what it's done is it's helped me do some mirror checks. I was like, oh snap, I have been part of this problem myself. And I'm like, okay, I need to stay my course to get my company to where I need to be. But you know, I just I said I wasn't going to re-engineer any processes, but I couldn't help myself. So I'm re-engineering 3 processes. And I submitted my proposal, and the response I got back was, I don't know, I feel uncomfortable doing my job and I don't want to be in that job anymore. So they were like, no worries, we'll move you. And I'm like, no, that's not what I said. And I was like, wow, not to be heard. And I think to myself, how to live your entire life where nobody's hearing you, people are acting like you're stupid. I mean, if I did not go through that process, if I didn't put myself in that situation, I couldn't get to this level of empathy where I can say, I could actually help now. And that's where I start getting courage that yes, what I'm trying to do, using generative AI for marginalized people, that is the right thing to do. And that's an important thing to do because we're smart. We have sense, we can think, and if you treat us like we do, that will happen. So that's an example of being humble. Another example of being humble is when I ask my staff to do something and they don't do it the way I ask them to do it. I always stop for a moment and I go, am I upset because it's an ego? Or am I upset because there's going to be a problem? And I started kind of tracking this stuff. And I realized that 80% of the time when I was upset was because all ego. And if it was an ego thing, I didn't say anything. I just let it go. Just let it go. So confidence, humility, put yourself in places where you're uncomfortable, where you don't know anything, and depend on other people. That's how you develop humility. And then when you do, wrap yourself in vulnerability, and vulnerability is hard, right? So I'm gonna say I'm about to stop talking. About maybe 15 minutes into this presentation, I'm gonna stop talking, and the rest of this presentation will be dependent on the engagement of the audience. I mean, that's the ultimate in vulnerability, because I don't know if I have a friendly audience. I don't know if I have a hostile audience. I don't know if I have an engaged audience. I don't know if I have a disengaged audience. And I am going to place my success for this presentation in the hands of people that I have never met. And I don't know whether or not they're going to enroll in what I'm trying to do. But what I found is when you're lean into vulnerability, people will show up. If you set the expectation of how you expect them to show up, they will show up that way. Like at my job, right? I look at people and I say, I need you to behave yourself. I just look at them. I don't say I need you to behave like in that way. I go like, okay, like, look, this evening, there's a lot of people. I need you to take your seat. I need you to like be respectful. If you're sitting in the seat, understand that when the owner comes, you got to move. So we're not going to be having any tussle. And I find that when I do that, 99% of the time, people are very much accommodating. Now, there's a few people that are just like edge cases, but I don't let the edge cases determine how I show up. And so I have been leaning into vulnerability. I remember when I had my job at the Children's Trust. So I first get there, and our relationship with our providers were so dysfunctional. And what I did was I said, I'm going to do a project reset. So I had some meetings. I'm going to reset. So I'm pressing. I happen to have like a little mole here in the back of my neck that I can just kind of press like you would reset a robot. I reset and I said, look, we're going to reset this, and you can't complain about anything that happened before I got here, but you can complain about anything that happens since I've gotten here. And this is how we're going to roll. And if you believe we're not rolling this way, I want you to let me know. And then I apologized. I said, I'm really sorry for everything. Let's just do a reset. And people are like, which executive does that? I do. And that really started a relationship. And 9 years later, these providers are still some of my biggest advocates. They're the ones that are buying my products. They're the ones that are telling me to go talk to this person to buy my product. So vulnerability does really work. And when I say confidence plus humility wrapped in vulnerability, results equals courage vase being filled. I mean, now I'm courageous because I know that people have my back, because I was vulnerable and they didn't let me fall. I was humble and I saw that people rose to levels of excellence that nobody else ever gave them a chance. And that built my confidence that I'm like, maybe my brother was right. He wasn't just telling me I was a superhero because he was trying to see how quickly I could kill myself. You know, I think it's just a great space to be. And because of being confident but humble plus vulnerable, I now have courage to take on some of the most gnarly thing. I believe that the way we're implementing generative AI can make a difference in people's lives. We can get the high potential student the tutors they want at a cost-effective way. We can take the high potential employee and give them the leadership training and the management training so that they can rise up the ranks and get to thrive in wage jobs, not live in wage jobs, because live in wage jobs are that you're just one transmission away from going sideways. But thrive in wage jobs are jobs where you have money that you can save. If you have a transmission problem, you're still okay. So I'm going to pause here and we're going to do a little exercise. We're going to ask the questions. So I'm going to stop sharing and we're going to start asking questions about, Ricardo is going to throw the questions up on the board.
Can you see my screen too?
Yeah, we can see a screen.
All right. So guys, here's our first question. So please, to participate on this, go to the link. It's on the screen. It's paulf.com/geekculture. I'm also gonna be putting it on the chat so you can easily access it. So here you go. Help us with your answers.
So we got assistant dean, senior agile coach. Oh, so I forgot to tell you, I'm not afraid of just looking at who's on the Zoom and just calling people out. It's an exercise in empowerment and vulnerability. Empowerment for the person I'm calling out, and vulnerability because I don't know how they're going to react when I call them out and put them on the spot.
I think that's fair. I like both sides of that. That's good.
Scrum Master, product owner, senior Scrum Master, executive coach. Project manager. So we got a lot of Scrum Masters. I will say, as we're waiting for this, Scrum Master is the ultimate exercise in vulnerability, confidence, and humility, because you're not really doing anything. But if the team succeeds, it's a team. But if the team doesn't succeed, you're the one that gets called in the principal's office. And I remember being on a project where I was a Scrum Master, and we're delivering this high-stake project. and having to convince a team of men. So I think there was one other woman on the team that was another developer, but it was just me and a bunch of guys. I had to convince them that they had to raise their victory flag and convince them on things to do. And during the process, I remember one day saying to them, okay, nobody gets to use hope and nobody gets to use try. You're either doing it or not doing it. Don't want to hear you trying. I don't want to hear you hope. Just do it. And that was a very scary moment to tell a team of guys that writing these high stake code that they just have to do it. But at the end of that project, the project ended in an anticlimactic way because we delivered cutting-edge software. And when we went live, like we're all there biting our fingernails, nothing happened. This cutover, the new system worked like how we wanted it to work. And it was a great feeling to be able to raise my victory flag because everybody else on the team had raised their victory flag. And I think that's that's the essence of being a Scrum Master, is creating a space where everybody on the team raises their victory flag, because you can't raise your victory flag until they do. Okay, what else do we have? Do you want to another minute, or do you want to move on to something else?
I think this was the last reply.
Okay. So want to get to the next question?
Sure. Team, please, in the same link, let's go over the same question.
So this question is about what's your latest win, and it goes with the whole thing about confidence, right? So your latest win can just be something like, give me 1 second, Sherry. Your latest win can be something as simple as, I made it to this meeting. Somebody said that they wanted to come last week, but at the last minute something else happened and they couldn't make it. So your latest win could be, I made it to the meeting. Or latest win is, for dinner tonight I had something healthy. And it's about staying in this space of gratitude and looking at everything in your life as a win. So raising your victory flag, not your feature flag. So victory. So the whole concept is, usually when we scale a mountain, go to the moon, we plant a flag. It's a little bit of my international relations training, very much about flags, to just state your territory. So if you have a team of 12 people, right? So you have your developers, and your developers just did an amazing thing. They can raise their victory flag, but then you got to need the database people, the data people, to also make sure the database is configured. They can raise their victory flag. Then the infrastructure guys, the infrastructure has to be good, so they can raise their victory flag. Then the testers have to test, and they can raise their victory flag. Then the deployment team, the ops team, needs to be able to deploy this into production and not break anything. And after all of those things are done, and I'm missing a few things, I'm staying a little high level here, then as a Scrum Master, you can say, I was successful. Because if any one of those things go wrong, then as a Scrum Master, you were not doing your job correctly. And that's what I mean behind raising your victory flag, is being able to celebrate a win. And part of what I'm talking about is making sure that you can win, that you enjoy your wins. You can see it, because sometimes we get so consumed with what we're doing that we didn't even notice the wins. So somebody got PMP certified, had a team, had a successful retrospective, coach a team member using project management, being first time being a coach, a scrum master, product owner. So my work being appreciated and feeling like I'm making a difference. Yay. Yeah, that scrum master role is not for the faint of heart, man. Because you're there, you're working and you're doing, and you're like, am I making a difference? Is it gonna happen? I mean, scrum master is the ultimate in vulnerability, because you have to delegate, like you have to depend on everybody else to be successful. Like you have no say in how you're going to be successful. You're dependent on a whole bunch of people. And you have to be, and your success is directly related to your ability to convince a bunch of people that they should go in the direction you want them to go in, at the rate that you want them to go in, at the time you want them to go in. And I like to tell people that my training as an international relations person is how I was able to negotiate and be a good scrum master, because I looked at it as, how do I negotiate win-win situations? Receiving constructive feedback about something that was important to me. Yeah. All about being vulnerable and being okay with getting constructive feedback so you can be the best version of yourself. Very important, very important. Okay, Ricardo, we want to go to the next question. These are some good things. I saw somebody planted a tree. Thank you for helping us with the environment.
All right, here we go with the next one.
Okay, as you can see, the questions are moving from less generic to more personal. So I think somebody put in the chat, confidence and humility sounds a little, let me make sure. Did I get this? Did I get it right? How can we be confident and humble at the same time? Yes, we can. So when I talked about that, what was happening with you at that moment in time? Let's do a little bit of reflection and retrospective. Did your brain just go, this woman is crazy, that she doesn't know what she's talking about? Like, did your brain go, that's not how I'm culturalized? Did your brain go, this is different? I mean, what did your brain do? How did your emotion feel? Did you shift a little bit in your seat? Were you feeling a little uncomfortable? Because I just put out something that kind of like maybe disrupt your worldview for a minute. Hopefully you can share. As you can see, it's all anonymous, so nobody knows who shared what. You know, it's a great way for us to practice being vulnerable by sharing, being honest, authentic. So what we got? A confident person could be uncomfortable with admitting mistakes. Yeah. But, you know, I argue that if you're very confident, you're comfortable admitting mistakes, because it's from mistakes that we learn. It's about confident in who you are, knowing what you bring to the table, also being humble to know that you can always learn more. Yep, spot on. That's a great summary of what we're saying is that you have to be confident, but know that you're going to make mistakes. You're going to say something wrong. You're going to make mistakes. I mean, I don't know how many mistakes did I make already. I mispronounced about 4 or 5 words. I know at least, because I don't pronounce words well, especially when I'm hyped and excited and my emotions are like, ugh. I forgot. I didn't explain how to be humble. I started going into being vulnerable, but I caught myself, went back. Yeah. Is it how you feel or how others perceive you? It's how you feel. So it's a very interesting thing, right? It's if I walk around feeling confident, then people are going to perceive me as a confident person. And so I think that it starts with how you feel. Now, I could be wrong about this. This is just, I know that whatever energy I give off, that's the energy I feel. People respond to. So like if I'm going somewhere and I'm really tired and I'm logy, then people are like, "Are you okay? You seem low energy today." Or if I'm going out and I'm like high energy and I'm excited, then I see people are excited. Like I noticed that people, well, at least one person is writing in the chat.
The reason why I say something like that is sometimes I talk to people who they do great presentations, but I talk to them and they're like, oh no, you know, I didn't feel confident, and I don't know if they get the same message that that's really how others perceive them. So it's just some of the observations that I've made with certain people. Just throwing it out.
Yeah. I hear you on that. Where like somebody does a presentation and
they look, for me, they're like, wow, look how confident they are. Look how they're. But
Yeah.
then you talk to them and they're like, no, I was a nervous wreck. I know maybe it's just an interesting thing. Once you have that conversation, kind of, you know.
Yeah. I mean, there's some level of perception, right? But maybe I would say there's degrees of confidence. So maybe they wanted to be a 10 and they were only like a 7. So they're like, yeah, I wasn't as good as I wanted to be. But for you to project confidence, you have to have some level of confidence in you.
Right. I think sometimes we're like, you know, we're our biggest critics, right? No matter what. And we all tend to do that. But it's how we feel inside. It's maybe not how people perceive us, but maybe that's how we feel inside. And we may not always be projecting it, but we sometimes feel that way. But you know.
Exactly. You're absolutely right. There's a difference between being confident and cocky and arrogant. Yeah. Arrogance, the person that says, I know everything. And when you're trying to explain or show them some fallacy, provide constructive feedback, they reject you, gaslight you, and deflect. Yeah. Want to go to the next question, Ricardo?
Sure thing. Here we go.
So this one's like a really, really important one, because no matter how confident we are, we tell ourselves stories that sometimes cause us to self-reject. And so, you know, what story do you tell yourself that holds you back? That, like, you know, you always are telling yourself that story, and then you're like, see, here's a data point that's correct. Here's another data point that's correct. But then when on further inspection, you realize that maybe I'm the one that's causing that. It's not really the other people. So what story do I tell? So like one of my stories that I used to tell myself was the fact that people only engage me because of the position I have. So I used to be the honorary consul, I believe, so that, yeah, people are only engaging me because I'm the consul. People are only engaging me because I work at Burger King. I work at IPC because I work at the Children's Trust. And I have a startup. I have no power, no title. Startup doesn't even make any real money yet. And people are still engaging me. Somebody emailed me and said, hey, Stephanie, we are looking for money for this program. And I'm like thinking to myself, me? I don't know. I don't know anybody. I don't know where to get this money from. And then I emailed this other person, and Person like, yeah, like we'll fund them. And I was like, okay, so maybe I still have access and power, and that it's not really about any positions I have or any titles I hold. And maybe it's just how I show up as a person and the fact that I'm always willing to help people. That was eye-opening for me. I'm not qualified or smart enough for certain jobs or tasks. You're always qualified and smart enough for a job if you're willing to learn. Living in past mistakes, yes. So the thing about living in past mistakes, this is what I say. When you make a mistake, you give yourself a day or two, you hug the mistake, you cuddle it, you caress it, you play with it, and after that day, you put it down and you say goodbye. Don't mess with that mistake anymore. Just move on, because there are other mistakes waiting for you to cuddle it, and caress it. So, you know, the more you spend time on that one, then you don't have time for the other ones. Still learning. Yeah, I'm but a humble servant still learning. Let's turn this into a positive. I am a humble servant and I'm still learning, not but I'm still learning. And because of that, I am going being curious and I'm a better team member for it. I can't afford to think negative about anything right now. Well, we all know what our brains like to do when you force it not to think negative. It just goes more hardcore negative. Again, you just say, my dad used to do this thing where whenever I wanted him to buy something or give me something or make me do something and he said no, I would like start whining and he would look at me and he's like, will you die? So go negative for a moment and say, whatever crisis you're dealing with, like, will I die? Will somebody else die? And 80% of the time, the answer is no. And then the moment you say no to that answer, your brain leaves you alone for you to be positive. Every problem is not mine to solve. That's true. That is actually not something that should hold you back. That should liberate you. Because if every problem is not yours to solve, then that means you can say no. And the more you can say no, the more you have the opportunity to lean into the things that you can do and you can do well, that can help you grow as an individual, grow in your professional career, and just help you be a holistic person. Any other thing? Sherry, man, I think I need to take you to every presentation. I love how you're just kind of summarizing the key points. I love this. I love this. Absolutely right. The stories that we tell ourselves are just stories. And I tell people, like, if the stories we tell ourselves are just stories, why not tell ourselves stories that make us feel good about ourselves? So I'm not saying to lie to yourself. So you got to keep all the facts together, right? Got to keep the facts, all the facts the same. So don't mess with the facts. But the story that you wrap the facts in can be positive. Like, let's say, like one day I was just so like, I'd scheduled too much thing all at once and I was going really fast. And I'm rushing over to one of my friend's house and I miss her lane because I don't like, I just know where she lives. I don't know the name of her street or anything like that. And so I stopped and I started reversing and I reversed into this truck that was making a left turn. And I was like, oh no. Oh my God. And what that did was, once, it reminded me of how lucky I am, because all that happened was some of the paint came off of the bumper. Now that might be because I drive a Volkswagen, and Volkswagens are that kind of car. Or it could just be that, God was just saying, hey, get it together, be focused. But anyway, what it did was it reminded me that when I'm rushed and overscheduled, I make mistakes. And so that just really calmed me down. So I could say, oh, I'm such an idiot. I can't believe I reversed into this guy and messed up the paint on my bumper. And I could dwell on that, or I can go, thanks for the reminder that I got to keep it together. And thanks for reminding me that I'm a lucky person because nothing really bad happened. In fact, before I could get out of the car, the guy had taken off, and I'm like thinking to myself, dude, you're the one that's supposed to be like wanting to wait because I just reversed into you. It wasn't you that reversed that ran into me. Maybe I'm not as polished enough for these people or PC enough for these people. I remember once somebody told me that maybe I should maybe not talk as much, or maybe I should watch what I say. And that person, I was like, I think I need to take you out of my friend garden. You're not helping me. I'm who I am. I'm as polished as I can be. I'm as PC as I can be. And if I say something that offends somebody, I apologize. I say my bad, and I carry on. I don't defend. I don't justify. I'm just me, my authentic self. And as long as I am showing up as my authentic self, I'm not trying to put on airs. I'm not trying to pretend that I'm not something. I'm something I'm not. I'm good to go. And you know what people really like is your ability to be authentic. And if we didn't come from a privileged background, sometimes we go hang out with privileged people and we think that like they're judging us because we're not polished enough. And really what they're judging us is, do these people like me for who I am, or do they like me for what I have? And the more you can just be yourself, and I'm not saying that you should go and burp and scratch yourself and all that stuff, but just go and have a conversation. See, Rick's going, oh my God, I can't believe she just said that. That's just so not PC. But be yourself and just lead into the conversation, and it will be okay. And I find that when you do that and not worried about being polished or PC, people accept you for who you are. I mean, I drove through the US last summer, 65 days. I went up the eastern seacoast, up around the Great Lakes, diagonally down to the desert, Las Vegas, across the south back to Miami. And the one consistent thing that I found is that if you just go and lean into and be curious about somebody and be authentic, life will be good. So, okay. I think we got one more question. Okay, so this one, like now we're getting really vulnerable. We're getting really personal. What holds you back from being vulnerable? Some people have told me that if they're vulnerable, bad things will happen to them. Or if they're vulnerable, people are going to perceive them as being weak and try and take advantage. But I would say that because most people aren't vulnerable, the fact that you're being vulnerable is so refreshing and so charming that people find that like, wow, this person is cool. And they're like, yeah, I like Stephanie because she's transparent. She's going to tell me exactly where I stand with her. I don't have to guess. I don't have any kind of anxiety. I don't have to worry about pretending with her. Yeah, being manipulated. But you know, I think that like the way I process that is somebody's like, you know, Stephanie, if you're too vulnerable, people are going to manipulate you. And people will manipulate you with vulnerability if you're being vulnerable as a show or an act. But if you're just being vulnerable because you're being yourself, they can't manipulate you because you don't care what they say or do. You're being vulnerable because that's who you are. Like, I'm here, I'm having this conversation, I'm sharing, I'm telling you about things that I like, I tell you about things I don't like. I'm putting it out there. Nobody can manipulate me with my story, with how I process the world, because I do care, and I do hope that people find this helpful, that they will come back to other sessions and they can see that this series that's being put on is really career enhancing. But if it's not, it's okay, because I came and I brought my A game and I did the best that I could. And that's all that's important, because that's all that Regina and Rick asked me to do. Bring my A game. When the space is not psychologically safe, yes, that is a problem. If you're in a space where it's not psychologically safe, what I say is start making plans to find a place that's psychologically safe. Because if you're in a place that's not psychologically safe, that's even worse than being in a place that's physically unsafe. Like, you would not stay in a place where people are shooting at you, dogs are charging at you, people are looking at trying to kill you or hurt you or harm you. And so psychological safety is just as important as physical safety, if not more important. Because if if somebody bruises you, the bruise goes away, and after a while you even forget where that bruise was. But if somebody abuses you psychologically, it's really hard to get over that. So I say, make a plan. I'm not saying just leave. Make a plan and plot, like, okay, in the next six weeks, 6 months, a year, I'm going to move and I'm going to get to a place that's safe. Having my words being misheard and possibly taken out of context. Well, the way I do this is I say, like, today I was in a meeting and somebody was saying something that like really triggered me, and I'm like, and I was like, okay, so finally it was my turn to speak, and I said, I might say something that might offend people, but that's not my intent. But I have to express my opinion and how much I disagree with what this advice that's being put forth. And because I acknowledge that I might not say it in the clearest way, one, I was already being vulnerable. When I was then leaning into my vulnerability even more, the person that said something didn't get offended. So it's about creating the context so that it's less likely to be taken out of context. Fear of not being accepted, fear of appearing incompetent. That's all ego. That's ego. And when we live an ego-driven life, we create. What do we create? When we live an ego-driven life, we create harm and chaos in our lives. Drop the ego and you'll realize that nobody's thinking you're incompetent. People want to accept you if you're authentic. Like I knew a friend, and after a while I didn't even know who she was because she kept changing. Like would go to somewhere and in front of the people, she'd say, oh, this is great, this is wonderful, about things that nobody was even asking her about. and then we would leave, and then she would just like run the place down. And I was like, wait, like, who are you? And she always had this concern about being accepted. And she'd be like, how come everybody likes you? And how come you can make friends with these random people? And it's just because I'm just, when I roll into the place, it's Stephanie Sylvestre. Take it or leave it, not changing to please you. And I think that the moment you stop being about the ego and being about your authentic self and being about a kind, loving human being, being vulnerable becomes so much easier. Anything else? Let's see. We got 15 more minutes. So I want to just kind of get any other questions that we may have. Do we have, I think that was the last question, right?
Let me see. I think we have another one.
Let's see. Yeah.
Yeah, that was the last one.
Yeah. So we have a, what kind of board do we have, Regina?
Board?
Yeah.
Boards.
Yeah. So or we can just drop it in the chat. Let me see. Let's see what the chat's saying here.
We can do that, or I can share the. I've shared the link to Jamboard on the chat. Usually, this is the tool we use for all the meetups, and here we can have all the questions. You can put the sticky notes using the toolbar on the left, and then you can add anything you want. It's anonymous, so everybody will be safe.
Yeah. So this is your time to ask any questions. If you want to come off mic, come off mute and just ask the questions, that's fine as well. And we'll spend the next few, like 10, 12 minutes chatting, asking any questions you might have, and then we can go from there.
So Stephanie, I've known you for a long time.
Yeah.
And, you know, again, I think you've changed my life. I know this sounds kind of weird, but as working with you at IPC and kind of seeing how you behaved, you know, how you projected yourself, understand that people notice and people take light of that, and it helps you become a better person. So I just want you to know that from a personal perspective. So my question to you is, where does this come from? Is this like inherently you from day one? Did you experience something in your life that said, this is my turning point, that really kind of changed me, and says, because you mentioned earlier, like you didn't feel like you were ready for this full transparency and saying, this is who I am, and that now you've really moved to that next level in your life. But what was that big aha moment for you? What really allowed you, or is this something that you were just born with, and you know, I've been living like this for all my life? Just curious.
You know, it's really funny. I just read a quote about that Hemingway said that slowly and all at once he became bankrupt. And I thought, okay, so I'm going to take out the word bankrupt and I'm going to use the rest of that saying. Slowly and all at once I became confident. Slowly and all at once I became courageous. I don't know that I have any one moment in my life that I can say is catalytic for me, but I do know it's a series of events that stacked upon each other that got me to where I need to be. And it's, you know, feedback like what you just said. Thank you, Rick. I mean, that was very validating. When people say to me, you know, Stephanie, you just hijacked that meeting and you just said a whole bunch of things that I was afraid to say. Thank you for being my voice, which says, you know, I'm doing a service. I'm doing a service by doing that. So I don't have one moment in time where I said, okay, it's catalytic. I think the closest thing I have would be when I was at Harvard, and I was at Harvard, and And the person that started the program said that I expect all of you guys to do something that's so scary that you know, you're just, it makes you so afraid. And that's when I came up with my asset-based approach to Black wealth creation. This is something I've always wanted to do. And that was my call to action. And since I took that call, answered that call to action, I'm just pleasantly surprised by the positive responses I've gotten. Let's see. Can you talk a little bit more about working through transitions? Transitions are hard. I will tell you that I've done two. This is my third reinventing of myself, and both the second this time and the second time I reinvented myself. No, wait. This is a third reinvention. I've reinvented myself twice, and both times, my romantic relationship ended. So now I have, as part of my stand-up comic routine, is sabbaticals, the ultimate stress test in relationship. Talking about what happens when you stress test a relationship. So my thing for how to go for transition is, first, make a plan. Make sure that you have enough money, and whatever amount of money you think you're going to have, double it. And then that will be just about the right amount of money that you're going to need. Talk to a lot of people. Find a few people that will be your support, who will not judge you or question you. And be okay if you start having second doubts. But know that whatever you conjure up to be at the end of the journey, that's what's going to be there. If while you're going through the transition, you conjure up like it's going to be distress and despair, that's what's going to be awaiting you. If you conjure up that it's going to be joy and fun, that's what's going to be there. If it's going to be serenity and peace, that's what's going to meet you. Whatever you conjure up as you go along the journey, that's what's going to be there to meet you. I don't know if I think I answered that question, but maybe if not, add another sticky and I'll try and do it. How have you seen your life mantra change, and which have been the most drastically different for you? How have my life mantra changed? I think that my life mantra hasn't really changed. When I was a little kid, my mom used to yell at me because I would like go to school and I'd give away my pencils and my erasers, and then I'd come home and I'd be like, oh, I need pencil. And she's like, what did you do with your pencil? She's like, oh, I gave it to this person. And she used to be like really mad with me. She's like, stop giving away your stuff. We don't have that kind of money to be just keep going to buy stuff. And now as an adult, I give away my access and my power and my privilege to anybody that wants it, because I think that's important to share. So I've always had that. It just manifests itself in a little bit different way. Now my mom doesn't yell at me about giving away my access, but you know, so I don't know that it's changed. I think it just get refined more and more. And as you continue, I always feel like I want to leave the space that I'm in a little bit better than I found it. So that's kind of, so I don't think it's changed. It's just kind of refined. I'm the same. I'm at 51, almost 52. I'm the same as I was when I was 9 years old, but I'm expressing it differently. But at the core, it's still the same. Any tips on how to encourage others to be more confident in speaking up in meetings? So if you're the person that's afraid of speaking up, tell yourself that I'm smart enough and they want to hear my advice. That's part of doing my job, is to share what I think. And if I don't share what I'm doing, what I think, then I'm doing my company a disservice and I'm not doing my job. If it's somebody else that you're trying to get to speak during the meetings, I'll be like, so Jenny, what do you think about that? Regina, what are your thoughts about that? And you do that enough times, and then finally they just go, oh, Stephanie's going to call on me, so I might as well just answer, save myself the torture. Help your team members grow and excel. What would you say we need more of from men in leadership on how they can support women in leadership, or women to become better leaders and grow in their career? That's always a hard question for me. I'll tell you why that's a hard question for me. Because a lot of the successes that I've had are because of males in leadership positions helping me out. So my dad coaching me, helping me whenever I have a problem. When I had my job at the Children's Trust, I didn't know anything about government. My dad has been a government bureaucrat for his entire life. So I went to Belize for a week, and he spent a week teaching me how to be a government employee. And after that, I was like, okay, I'm ready for this. At IPC, George LaBelle, I go in for the interview, and George like, you're so awesome. I was like, what? There was an article about me in the newspaper like the Sunday. And so he spent the entire time talking about this article. It was about the woman build homes that I was building with Habitat. And my entire time that I was at IPC and after, he was just very supportive about creating space for me to excel and be a leader. At the Children's Trust, the way I got my job there, a man said, yes, I think you should come work for me. So I think what I would say is, sometimes we tell ourselves stories that keep us back, that self-reject. And we say that men don't want to help us. And it's not that they don't want to help us, but they too are trying to get ahead. And so we need to find our voice and go ask for help. Like, it's not fair to say that men don't care about women and men don't want to help women unless you ask all the men in the world and they all said no. And we know that's not going to happen. You could say there are certain men that don't care about women, and that would be fair. You could say this guy that I used to work with didn't care about women, and that would be true. But to say that men in leadership positions don't care about women is a disservice. And my avatar would say, actually, let me see what my avatar would say. I'm going to ask my avatar what it would say because whenever I make these generalized statements, my avatar always tells me that you need to be careful about making these statements because it could be wrong. So men in leadership don't care about women and advancing them. So let's see what it says. But yeah, I think it's just really important about like what messages we tell ourselves. So let's see.
Is it generating?
Yeah, it is. It is. I'm sorry. I'm sorry to hear that you feel that way. While it's true that there are still many challenges facing women in leadership position, it's important to remember that there's also many men who are committed to advancing women and promoting gender equality. Here are some steps you can take to help advance your career. Seek out mentors, look for men and women who have achieved success in their field and ask them to mentor you. They can provide valuable guidance and support as you navigate your career. Build a network, attend industry events and conferences to meet professionals in your field. Building a strong network can help you find new opportunities and advance your career. Advocate for yourself. Don't be afraid to speak up and ask for what you want. Make sure your accomplishments are recognized and that they're being compensated fairly. Support other women. Lift up other women in your field by offering mentorship, networking, opportunities and support. When women support each other, we can achieve great things. Remember that changes take time, but by taking these steps, you can help advance your own career and contribute to the larger goal of promoting gender equality in the workplace.
Oh, wow. That's awesome. That's a good one to end with, Stephanie. That is awesome. Thank you so much.
Great job. So Regina, what I'll do is maybe take a quick snapshot if that's possible. Yeah. I know some of us don't have the cameras on. If you could just turn on your camera a second, just to take a quick picture. So Steph, what we do with this is we put that in LinkedIn, and then we have people comment and provide, and sharing with others. Okay, so that's the idea behind this. So again, I want to thank you first before Regina does, because I know once Regina gets going, we're not going to be able to. But Stephanie, again, like I told you earlier, amazing role model to everyone out there. And we really appreciate the work that you're doing to help others. And we're advocates of your career, and whatever we could do to help you, we're here for you. So awesome job. Thank you for sharing of yourself and being vulnerable with us. Again, I love you. All right, write that down. Okay, I do love you. All right.
Thank you, Rick. I love you as well. Rick was one of the first people that that taught me that it's okay to love your coworkers.
Thank you. Thank you. All right, Regina, anything on your side?
No, awesome. You're always an inspiration. We really appreciate you being vulnerable and sharing your story with us. Guys, if you want to stay in touch with her, please look her up on LinkedIn. And we'd love for you guys, if you don't mind, please, the only thing we ask for is to take a picture, to post it on LinkedIn, and you guys like it. We can continue to promote Stephanie and also promote the meetup. As you know, we're here every Wednesday at 6 p.m. and also Saturdays for the Agile Coaching Clinic. I did put a link on the chat of one of our upcoming in-person meetups that is happening at Southern Glacier Wine and Spirits, but it's also going to be hybrid. It's also going to be online. So that's on May, I believe it's on May 24th. If you guys can register for that ahead of time, that would be wonderful.